Hi everyone, it's Stu here from 3B. I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but I did promise that in August I would start stepping up with videos. So here's the first one, and it's more of a discussion really. We're starting to see an awful lot of new headsets coming out with regards VR. The latest one that's due to come out in the next couple of months is the HP Reverb G2. Now this is an amazing, fabulous headset, but I do feel that there's too much sort of excitement going unfocused really, no pun intended, on the resolution of this device. Now I understand, the resolution on the G2 is great, and I think the reason behind making this video is to sort of temper that enthusiasm and to make those that perhaps haven't experienced VR very much, or if at all, and are using this as a predominant reason to purchase the G2, that there may be just some an alternative or some alternatives that may be better suited towards getting that best VR experience. Now it's easy to sort of take that assumption that it's all about resolution, and resolution leads to higher clarity, and if it's higher clarity, then that experience within that VR headset is going to be all that much more clearer, and this is true. However, with VR it's much more than just the resolution. The fact of the clear fact of is that there is the immersion aspect, which is brought to you by your physicality in a virtual sense within that game, or the environment in which you're playing, and that's brought to you by how well the tracking of your hands and your body within that environment is made. How accurately that is portrayed, so there's the expectation of that sort of the movements that you make are one-to-one with the movements that's represented in VR2. And it's also important to understand that that can be so easily broken. And let me use, I've had I've had quite a few headsets actually. I had the original HTC Vive, I think it was the Vive, I can't remember if it's called that now, it's completely gone off my head, but you'll know which one I mean. So the first real proper all singing all dancing headset with the lighthouses and so on, that was fabulous. And really got me hooked to VR. Then I took a bit of a left turn and went to Oculus, mainly because at the time the HTC was the games on there weren't really that many. They were sort of felt more like tech demos, and Oculus at the time had more real games, and that sort of attracted me to it. What I didn't quite understand was how awful their tracking was. They had, at the time with the original Rift, had those awful sort of cameras pointing at you, and I bought 3 at the time, so I had one behind me so it could cope with the tracking, but it would lose it so very much. So even though the games were great, the immersion wasn't there as much as it was with the experiences, for instance, that I was getting on the HTC Vive. And this is the thing to really understand. It's all about that immersion as a whole. So I then went from the Rift, the original commercial Rift, to the Rift S, and then from the Rift S I've now got a Valve Index. So I've experienced both the inside-out tracking and how well it hasn't worked, and various other forms of tracking and the lighthouse tracking. So I have a good amount of experience of that over the years. I've just not done any videos on that really. I've never really felt the need when other people were doing much better. So it's important to really understand that the resolution, and there's a lot of YouTubers just going banging on about the G2 and how amazing it is, which gets a little frustrating because they're sort of answering the question about tracking a little bit. But once that tracking breaks and you're in a virtual environment and you're in a game and so on, and that tracking breaks, that pulls you straight out of that environment. I did a video on the Rift S using the Boneworks game. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was just called Boneworks. That was predominantly developed for the Valve Index. And I tried to play that using the Rift S and the tracking without the inside-out tracking and so on. And what I found that it became just far too distracting, that I was being pulled out of that sort of VR experience all too readily because of janky tracking. And inside-out tracking is great, but it has its limitations, you know, the fact that, you know, reaching behind you from a backpack, for instance, although Oculus are doing amazing things with AI to figure out what you're trying to do when you're sort of doing things like that. HP, on the other hand, don't really have an amazing track record, or in fact Windows VR doesn't really have an amazing track record of tracking. So it remains to be completely seen how well that works with an awful lot of games. Seated games, possibly, it would work very well. We're seeing that the G2 being the first VR headset to be pushed with the Flight Sim, Microsoft Flight Simulator, which I'm very excited about. That's possibly another video on my experiences with flight sims over the years. So the crux of it, of what I'm trying to get at through this, is that VR is much more than what you see. It's much more than the resolution to what you see, because after a while, unless it's really bad, you don't really notice it too much, I say, because if the other aspects are working very well, the tracking, the relationship to you in that game and how well that's portrayed by the device that you're using and represented to you in your head and brain by your movements, then that is when VR wins. That is when that VR system is truly pulling you in. And as soon as things get janky or don't work, or your arms start doing all that nonsense because the tracking is going crazy, then that pulls you straight out. Or you get the frustrating things of floating things because the tracking isn't true, you know, it isn't sort of millimeter perfect. So the question is really, if you're spending like $699 on a G2 when a Valve Index is like $939, round about there in pounds, for those extra few hundred pounds, where you get better controllers, you get the knuckles, you get the lighthouses, and what that brings to in terms of the immersion in a game, add to that a lower resolution but a wider field of view. And the other key aspect that I noticed when I moved from the Oculus Rift S was the lower refresh rate. That has an amazing impact on the pulling you out of immersion, because things get a bit sort of stuttery at times. The index goes up to 144, which is pretty good indeed, and it runs on my 2080 Ti at 120 hertz, so you know, there's nothing too shabby about that. So my question really is to understand that things can pull you out of VR very quickly, and it's important to understand that. And maybe, just maybe, it may be worth just going that little bit step further and going for the index. Let me know your thoughts in the description below, in the comments below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. It's just me rambling as usual. And I hope to hear from you very soon. Or you probably hope to hear from me very soon. Maybe not even that. Maybe you just wish I'd go away again.